Right. Yeah, I just like to welcome you to this economics video we're going to do today. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to do all about aggregate demand. Hopefully, I'll try and make it a short video, but you know, in mind, I might waffle on about Jim and Joe and Jonathan. Okay, so, well, I'll just put aggregate demand at the top, actually. You may be asking me, well, what is aggregate demand? I mean, you should know what demand is, but what's aggregate demand? Well, aggregate demand is the total spending in an economy. The total spending in an economy. I'm not going to write this, but it's at any given price level over a given period of time. So I'm not going to write that down because I'm quite lazy. So, you know, like, not a textbook definition, but it's something to mull around the old noggin. So that is the definition, what I just said there. So what does an aggregate demand curve look like? Well, it's quite like this. Now, I'm not going to write the labels on because I need to explain a couple of things. I'm just going to draw the curve. It's going up, it's going across, AD. Don't forget to label it AD, by the way, otherwise it won't give you any marks at all. Now, the reason why I've left it with no values on the vertical axis and the horizontal axis is because we're talking about aggregate demand. Now, that's the total spending in an economy. And when we were talking about demand curves, well, I was probably talking to myself, but when you talk about demand curves, you're talking about one product in particular. For example, I don't know, a video game, a certain video game. Whereas if it's the total spending, I didn't cross it out, I just underlined it, by the way, it's a variety of different products. So instead of saying price level, we call it average price level. And hopefully you see why we've used that, and not just that, oh well, you've got to accept that. And then across the bottom, now what we had before was quantity demanded and supplied. Now that's of one good. So the national way of representing that over the whole economy is the whole output. And now we can't just write the words whole output because that doesn't sound very intelligent. So the output of an economy is measured in GDP, and we'll talk about that in economic growth. But for here we're just going to assume it's real GDP, and I'll explain the real bit. So real GDP, and obviously really we should be measuring it in GMP, but we're not, because it's a bit harder to calculate, as we have to take out foreign firms that are producing in the UK and include external UK firms that are producing in other countries but on our behalf. So that's why we've used them to values on the axis. Now you may be saying, well, as it's sloping downwards, why is it sloping downwards? Well, to answer your question, it's quite a good question. We have three effects, so we'll call it the wealth, interest rate, and obviously these all have effects on the end of it, interest rate, and then finally after interest rates we have something called the foreign, is it called exchange? If it's wrong I'll put a thing on, but yeah, I think it's called exchange, the foreign exchange effect. Now foreign exchange is like goods and services, imports, exports, that sort of thing. So how do these individual effects, what do they mean? I mean, it's very good saying wealth, but what is wealth? Well, I say that's what I'm going to start with, otherwise I would have started waffling on about it already. So we've got wealth. Now wealth is anything that person owns. So it could be this house or this rather fetching jacket. It all accumulates to someone's wealth. And now, how can we relate this to the average price level and make the aggregate demand curve slope downwards? Well, the wealth, if something goes up in price, people feel more wealthy. Oh wait, no, sorry, wrong way. If it goes up in price, yeah, if other things go up in price, then you feel less wealthy as you're able to spend less of your wealth. If prices go down, your wealth wait, is that right? Sorry, just give me a second. It shouldn't happen, but never mind. Sorry, I'll just be a second. No, it's not that one. Alright, where is it? Nearly there, don't worry. Right, there we go. Right, nearly there, don't worry. Yeah, that's right, sorry. So, an increase in price means you can spend less, so the consumers feel less wealthy. So, you know, consumer spending will decrease, and that is one of the factors of aggregate demand, which we'll come on to in a minute. Interest rates. Now, interest rates can affect firms and consumers in the market. Now, I'm going to talk about firms first. So, for a firm, a determining factor... Oh, sorry, just checking time. Yeah, so for firms, interest rates affect them because interest rates, they charge on borrowing money from a bank, for example. So if interest rates increase, it's more costly for a business to borrow money, say for an investment, for example. So when interest rates increase, generally investment decreases. As that's one of the factors of aggregate demand. It means that aggregate demand decreases as well. This is similar for consumers, except they don't invest, they spend in the market. So if interest rates increase, there's nothing happens with the prices of the general goods or services in the economy. But interest rates is something you get back from a bank in terms of, yeah, if you keep paying your salary in, they'll give you another 5%, for example. It's probably not going to happen. Be a good bank if they did that, but I'm just giving you an example. I mean, it's not a bank in my back pocket. I'll probably do that for you if you donate. So, and then hopefully that's cleared you up about the wealth and interest rate effect. I'm not going to write this down because it'll just be rubbed off in a minute. Then we've got the foreign exchange effect. Now, the foreign exchange effect is if our prices increase, then it's basically same as inflation, prices increase, and the same thing, which we'll go into in another video. But the foreign exchange effect, so if we have an increase in our prices, then our exports get reduced because it appears that we are ripping off other countries in terms of pricing compared to other countries in the world. So our exports decrease, and if our prices increase, then we import more, so our net exports decrease. And obviously all of these can be reversed if the prices go down or up, depending on which one we talked about. Now, I said certain determinants in there. So what is aggregate demand? How do we calculate it? Well, AD equals C plus G plus I plus X take M. It's not worry about M. So consumer spending plus government spending plus investment take plus net exports even. Yeah. So as you can see from net exports, if our imports increase, then our net exports decrease, and vice versa, obviously. So hopefully it's cleared a little bit of aggregate demand trouble up if you had any. Now, there are determinants within them determinants. I know it's crazy, but put your feet up and I'll explain it. So, consumer expenditure, I just put consumer because I'm again lazy. But you're not going to do that in an exam, are you? No. Consumer expenditure. does consumer expenditure affect? Well, we've got disposable income. So disposable income is the income after taxes been taken away, so disposable. Let's put disposable income, I. Oh, actually, disposable Y. Interest rates, as I said before, about the interest rate effect. Interest rates. Now we have unemployment. So if unemployment increases, more people are off work, we assume. So spending decreases as people have less to spend, which relates to disposable income. And after that we have consumer confidence. So if consumers are more confident about their job, they will spend more, so they're less worried about losing it, and they need to retain money. And then we have consumer expectations. So this is in terms of price. So if price were to increase in the economy, then people would buy more of it now and less when the prices increase. However, this could lead to inflation, as people spending money, firms think yes we can charge a higher price, so it actually ignites inflation. But again, we'll talk about that in inflationary videos. So consumer expenditure, so we've done that, tick, cross that off. Government spending, I just put G because I guess G. So G is mainly just to do with unemployment, or so we've got transfer payments, etc. But obviously there's other factors, but they're quite self-explanatory really. You relate them to whatever case study you're doing in the exam. Investment, now it's quite similar to consumer. Disposable income of a investor, so it could be the entrepreneur or a venture capitalist. Disposable Y. And then we have, as well as disposable income, we have interest rates. Sorry, I'm just trying to pick off the ones that are related to both investment and consumer expenditure before I go into the differences. We don't mix them up. So yeah, we have business confidence. So put biz C, because I'm lazy again. After business confidence we have, is it taxation? Yep, taxation. I don't think we have investor confidence. Investor expectations even. That should be expectations, not expenditure. Taxation, and then we have, yeah, business confidence, profitability. Now this is measured in terms of, we could have net profit margins, which is the net profit over the sales revenue, and that shows, it sort of climatizes the, sort of puts into perspective of if you have a big business, it makes a bigger profit than a small business. But if we use profitability scales, we can determine how well it's using, how efficient it is, and how profitable the business is, which would be useful again for an investor. That's why it's determined investment. Net exports. Oh wait, yeah, profitability and capacity utilisation. Sorry. Capacity utilisation is relevant, as if the business is at low capacity, they're likely to, say there are lots of unemployed jobs, machines lying idle, they can just simply employ them at a lower price, which is a bit like the Keynesian aggregate supply curve. So you don't need to invest that much. But as the capacity utilisation increases and there is less spare, they're going to have to buy more places to produce their products, hire more workers, subcontract the work, etc. Which is more business, but still, capacity utilisation is for investment. And then we have net exports. Now, on net exports, we have a lot of determinants for that. Right, so as I was saying, with net exports, have a few determinants in there as well. Now for net exports, we're going to start off with exchange rate, that's it. So I'm trying to think what it's called. Exchange. Just put exchange R again because I'm lazy. So exchange rate, well, what is that? It's basically the value of our pound in comparison to other currencies across the world. That's why we're not in such a mess like the Eurozone crisis, which is also really interesting. And that's why I don't have a girlfriend, if you're wondering. So, exchange rate. Now, I'm sure there's many other reasons for the girlfriend problem. Anyway, so exchange rate. Now, if we increase our exchange rate, that's good for us because it makes foreign products cheaper. So we can import cars more, for example, and foreign goods and services pay cheaper. Now, this works the other way round for other countries. It's our products appear more expensive, so we export less as there is less demand as our prices increased. We assume price elasticity is quite price elastic in demand, which is something else we'll go on to as well. So that's exchange rates for you. And obviously all these would be reversed if we did the opposite with the prices. Now another one is incomes. Sort of linked to exchange rates, except in a portion of actual incomes is weirdly enough. So if incomes increase over here, we export. Our exports are the same, but our imports increase as we can afford more. So our incomes, yeah. So that's how incomes, obviously, the other way around for other prices. And then we have inflation, sort of to do with prices and quite related to exchange rate. So these are mostly all about prices. So inflation. So if inflation increases in one country, its exports will decrease and imports will increase. Hopefully, don't need to go into detail why that is. Quality of goods and services. So I just put quality plus quantity. Now the quality and quantity of G and S, yeah, G plus S. This is quite self-explanatory, really. So if you don't get it, anyway. So quality and quantity. So if quality increases in this country, we're going to export more and import less as our domestically produced goods appear more, as a vastly produced, so they tend to be cheaper and the better quality. So, you know, hopefully if people don't mock British stuff, then it will increase our, decrease our imports even, and increase our exports, which will have an effect on net exports and ergo have an effect on aggregate demand. So quality and quantity of goods and services. And sure, there's one sec. Oh yeah. So the government trade. Sorry, no, not spelled right. I was just trying to get it out. So government restrictions on trade. So if the government says we can only export 700 goods this year, then no matter how much demand there is, if it's more than 700, the maximum goods they can export is 700. So their exports, if they're, depending on what it was last year, it's going to increase or decrease, which is going to have an effect on their net exports. Now, all these have effects on the aggregate demand curve. So if they increase, then aggregate demand will increase, so it shifts to the outwards. AD1, so that means the price increases and the quantity demanded increases. However, if these decrease, then we have AD2, and now price decreases and quantity demanded. So we've got P, P1, sorry, it's not really good, just trying to get it out of the way quick, and that represents as Y1, Y, and then that decreases P2 and Y2. Sorry, it's not really good, but it's just a quick sketch. So hopefully that clears it up. And as the same with demand, any increase in price causes a movement along the aggregate demand curve. But apart from that, diddly bow squat, that's all you need to know.